Hey, y'all. Once again, thanks for tuning in to another quick little bonus episode here. When I sat down and talked to Pablo Serrano, we had a really long discussion that I had to, edit down a little bit. And there was a big portion of the beginning of our conversation that I took out that incorporated U of I and our time there. We talk about Pablo's roommate during orientation. We talk about a little bit of what has been going on with ICE here in Chicago. And we kind of just reflect on that a little bit. And that all happened before we actually got into the interview. So I hope you enjoy this little piece of the conversation. And if you like these, let me know. I'll definitely do more of them. But sit back, relax, and take a listen to Pablo and I reminisce about school. And we were just talking about U of I.
U of I.
Long time ago, right?
Man, are you you're the oldest?
Yes.
Right. So I remember I'm the oldest of three, and I remember coming from Whitney Young. I had never visited U of I.
Okay.
I had applied there. Most of my friends applied there, got the grades. I was pursuing art stuff, and I was like, I was thinking of going to school at either the Art Institute or the American Institute of Art, one of these art schools. But it was too much because of the private stuff.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a good financial aid package to go to U of I, and had no idea what I was getting into, right? Because I had never visited. I just obviously, and I went by myself when, I just loaded up. I think it must have been a Chevy Lumina back in 97. And I just...
Were your parents just like, bye?
No, I just remember saying goodbye, and I'm driving there because they didn't know, right, the ritual of, let's go load the van and make sure our kid is settled in.
But your parents weren't like, ay, mi Pablito, there he goes.
Oh, no, it was a very sad goodbye.
Yeah.
For sure, because it was the unknown, right? Like you're going from Pilsen right there by Dvork Park, the neighborhood, and then getting on the expressway, driving for 2.5 hours. No, I don't know, maybe some technology, right? But you're probably using paper and trying to figure out how to get there, right? There's no Google Maps or anything like that.
You just memorize the exit.
Yeah, you're like, I think I'm supposed to make a left here, there.
Right.
Get there, start loading in, and I, arrive at the Six Pack. Right by.
You were one of the lucky ones that got a room in the Six Pack.
Yeah, but I had two roommates, right? Hitesh, Indian brother, and then Kevin was Korean, right? So they put the whole international group of our floor together, and I'm just like, what is going on, right? I didn't have like basic stuff, that you would think you need, right? And I was just like, I forgot like this cover for the bed and this and that, and like, you need like soap and you need this and that. So obviously, like, had to figure it all out.
Yeah.
But it was just a different world.
Oh, completely.
Completely. You're in the dorms, and it's a small town, Champaign-Urbana, and obviously you seeing all these families get there, and I'm on my own, and I was like, damn, what am I gonna do? Because I'm already starting to get homesick from this, and I'm like, this is gonna be crazy. And but I did bring my stereo system,
of course.
So I had my old school, no Bluetooth speaker, no nothing. It was just like a little console thing with two left and right speakers, and I'm like, I just started playing house music because I was just like, all right, I need to hear something to kind of,
I need to feel like I'm home.
Yeah, just
right?
something culturally, because it was so white, overwhelmingly white. And that's what the first semester was like, going into art school. I met one of my artistic best friends, Jose Gutierrez, who's a teacher, used to work at the National Museum of Mexican Art for a long time. He was the only other art kid in my class. We would look at each other and like, hey, dude, where are you from? Oh, a little village, but we live in Berwyn, and that was it.
Yeah.
But it was, everyone else was probably white,
Mm-hmm.
coming from all these different spaces. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe the classroom is like this. But then you go to, a U.S. history class or one of these, 1,000 people, and you're just like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you are a, very small fraction your cultural perspective is sorely underrepresented, or maybe this is the right mix, right, of what it means to be your place, right,
Mm-hmm.
in the larger cultural equation. So yeah, it was life changing for sure, and I
Mm-hmm.
had come from Whitney Young, that obviously was socially engineered, right, to be diverse
Right.
because of how segregated our schools are. So in terms of that, right, like I was very comfortable, hanging out with Black folks, Asian folks, other
Mm-hmm.
Latino members, or Puerto Rican, um, and obviously the diverse color of Mexican that is there, right, from hood,
Mm-hmm.
gangsta folks to the more preppy folks that are there. But whiteness
Mm-hmm.
was something that you're just like, oh, okay, this is what this is going to be about,
Right.
right? To understand, that, and obviously this is all being colored through the discourse of art, right? Art, and what is the role of art in our society. And it was crazy,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. But it was very
Mm-hmm.
formative because I was blessed to be in a program studying graphic design, where the idea was obviously more about visual problem solving and the way you think about organizing visual information to
Mm-hmm.
respond to different needs, right, and different challenges and problems because of the commercial side, versus a more technical thing that, hey, we're going to show you how to use this program right and this, without really thinking about how and why
Mm-hmm.
to use these different things. So that helped me a lot,
Yeah.
because if there was a perfect program, I probably would have gone into like muralism or public
Mm.
art or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
But those programs kind of don't exist, right? You'd have to
Right.
go into painting and kind of create it
Yeah.
for yourself.
So when you were there, because I know when I was at U of I, they had a 3-day orientation for us folks of color.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And did you have that as well?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's
And so it
our.
was like an extra day, right? And I just remember
Oh, you're
you
right.
had one day where you were hanging out with the crew,
Yeah.
and everyone, and I was like, okay, this is cool. You were meeting people. You're like,
uh,
and then all of a sudden the next day they integrate you into the larger groups,
yeah,
and everybody just melted into the whiteness. I just
yeah,
remember that, and I was like, I don't see anybody that I saw the first day. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be
yeah.
very
I think it was
interesting.
like clubs and different things that are being offered, and I
Yeah.
remember that because that's where I met Rodrigo, right?
Uh-huh.
Because we were roommates for that orientation, and obviously Rodrigo, from Rebeldias, um, is a brother that has a very, very powerful life story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming from Chile, right? Parents were forced into exile after the original 9/11, right? Pinochet's coup against Salvador Allende, and these like macro, really important events that
Mm-hmm.
speak to Latin American identity and colonialism and oppression, foreign involvement, that continue to live with us today. So he had a very clear political and social identity
Mm-hmm.
that was a little foreign to me because I was just wrapping my head around what it
Yes.
meant to be Mexican, Mexican American, Chicano, Hispanic, Latino, within what we call America and the United States, and all of this, and it's overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
because of the complexity of the different interests and the history, and just the fact that you meet people like Rodrigo, right, at a university, along with a bunch of other people that have their own stories and their own connections
Mm-hmm.
to this place. But
And that's an interesting thing that you bring up, because I feel like I also had that experience with Rodrigo too, right? Where he is just such a bold,
yeah,
empowered, like, being, right? And he knows what is right in his head. He knows what his right is, what he fights for, and why.
yeah,
And he's very educated in that whole, space, right? And so for me, it was almost like when you first, I don't know about you, but I feel like living in Chicago, there wasn't, we had our own pride in like our Mexican community, but there wasn't a collective pride, right? It was still like, oh, you have to acculturate, or it's like, know how to speak English very well as well as you speak Spanish. And the first time I went to LA, when everyone's talking to you in Spanish and unapologetically just Mexican,
Yeah.
they're like, "Es our cultura. What's wrong with being speaking Spanglish and being bilingual and being bicultural? There's nothing wrong with that." And I feel like it was interesting because going to U of I was the opposite, right? Where it's almost like, okay, you have to assimilate, you have to be this new person to work in this society that you're being put in. And then all of a sudden you go to like these cultural, you meet these people who are just very bold and very proud. And it's almost like, am I not enough? Like, should I be doing more? What should I be doing? And I feel like it's interesting when I read that you mentioned Rodrigo, and without even mentioning him by name, I knew who you were talking about. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you have grown into this very active person. You're using your activism, your education, I feel like it's your teaching style almost, right? You're trying to educate the masses about what you know. Did he plant a seed? Like being around people like that, was that where you got this?
One of the craziest memories that I have of Rodrigo is when I was there, there was the controversy over Chief Alain Weck,
Yes.
right? For people that don't know, right? Oh man,
It's ridiculous when you're trying to explain it, right?
yeah, but basically, right, during major sports events, but especially football, we know the role that football has in this society as being the, I don't know how to say it, gladiator culture, right? The number one um, uh, sports uh, social discourse that dominates the U.S. overwhelmingly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Internationally, it's football, soccer, right? But here, it's American football, and back then, the tradition, whereas during halftime, some dude, white, would come out in a headdress and honor, in quotation marks, the Illini by doing this dance, right, in front of, I don't know how many people fit in Memorial Stadium, but it's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? 60,000 people, and that's what was normal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now that doesn't happen, right? But that was a big struggle, just like the prior generation of us establishing Latino studies was their struggle.
Right.
For our generation, 97 to 2001, it was that kind
And
of
it
wrestling.
ended when I was there. Isn't
Yeah.
that funny? Like that.
Yeah.
Those connections, right? The lineage of.
Yeah. I
When we
mean,
were there.
everyone has
Mm-hmm.
their own challenges that obviously are built on the shoulders of other generations that obviously responded to things that they could not ignore,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I remember Rodrigo, he's standing right there in front of the union, and then there was like this crazy protest going on for and against, and then he ended up like I think grabbing because one of the symbols was Chief Alain Weck on these shirts,
Mm-hmm.
grabs one and right in front of these frat dudes, right, the bros, boom, ends up tearing it up right in their face without any fear,
Uh-huh.
right? The same way someone might feel the necessity to burn an
Right.
American flag because
Mm-hmm.
of how chaotic or how un-American, things are, right? Whether it's with ICE or, foreign wars or just the horrendously imperialistic things that this country does
Mm-hmm.
to its people, right? That's when I saw he did that, and I was like, what would it take, for you to possibly, trigger or do something like that right in front of people with the ideology that is counter to
Mm-hmm.
you, right? And take a symbol, right, of Chief and tear it up, right, in front of their face, and that courage and that thing, and that's what it fundamentally is, right? Knowing the story, right, and being able to stand and occupy space and actions for people that are not there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whether that's the 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 especially in this country, right? I don't know if how many original people of these lands, right? The native, indigenous, Native Americans, American Indians, whatever you want to call the original people, right, of this country. How many people you've met that are, hey, I'm half or quarter, I'm full blooded, I belong to these tribes that have millennia of,
Mm-hmm.
but for most people, they've never met,
Mm-hmm.
anyone from these communities, right? And that should tell you something, especially as someone that is coming from Mexico, right? Because the mestizaje and the conquest was a little different there.
Mm-hmm.
It was very violent, culturally. We just marked 500 years of the conquest, right, of the indigenous people of what is now known as Mexico, right, 1515. We are, our cultural identity is all of the shades,
Mm-hmm.
right, from the European, the Spanish conquistadors to the indigenous people, right, to the slaves that form what we call mestizaje, right? But here, what is mestizaje, right, in this
Mm-hmm.
country,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only mestizaje that I see is the one that is happening in our cities, right? Where, the black and the brown communities are sharing schools, young students are friends, they're
Mm-hmm.
falling in love, they're working together, making music, doing different things. And that's the 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 what is the word? The natural inclination is for children to play together, to
Mm-hmm.
grow together, to be together, and form a sense of community that is similar to one you would find in a playground,
Mm-hmm.
right? But Chicago is so segregated by design that unfortunately those experiences are ridiculously rare,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you survey, the public schools or just pretty much most schools in Chicago, there's going to be a very dominant form of segregation there, whether it's class, right? It's like, hey, poor kids
Mm-hmm.
here, or definitely racially, right? And culturally, you're going to have schools that are overwhelmingly one ethnicity, one culture. And those kids might not ever experience, some one of their fellow Chicagoans that might be from a different class or from a different race until maybe high school
Mm-hmm.
or until maybe college, if you can get to college. Or you might not experience it until you work with someone,
Right.
but that'll be asymmetrical. Sometimes you'll be working for someone
Mm-hmm.
or someone will be working for you. It's never eye to eye the way it is on a playground, the
Mm-hmm.
way it is through that. And that's a tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you see when, the Taste of Chicago, these different cultural events happen and the city does come together, you're like, what a wonderful array
Mm-hmm.
of cultures and different experiences that we have here, but we don't do what we need to do to, create those experiences that allow young minds and the families, right, that they belong to wrestle with who it is that we're actually sharing this world with. And you're like, oh, well, that's just a Chicago thing. It's like, no, it's not a Chicago thing. This is something that speaks to the broader American design of, like if the history of minority communities, right? Whether you're black or you're part of the indigenous communities here or the Mexican communities, right? There are the Chinese communities, the
Mm-hmm.
Japanese communities, the Puerto Rican communities. There is a horrendous record of segregation, of racial violence, of compartmentalization, right, to protect the dominant culture that, with what just happened with Bad Bunny
Mm-hmm.
at the Super Bowl, right? It's like Puerto Rico has been a huge part of
Mm-hmm.
American identity for a long time, but
Yeah.
they're acting as if it's so foreign it's so distant that it doesn't belong,
That this
right?
is new.
That it is new, or not only new, but it's threatening
Right.
to that it doesn't add culture, it doesn't add meaning and value to the broader American or U.S. identity. And I struggle with those two words, right? Because in Spanish, we're blessed with the word estadounidense, right? But in the U.S., we don't have the counterpart.
I started saying United Statesian.
Yeah,
Because I was like,
yeah, because there is a distinction
Right.
between what American is and what it means to be exclusively of the United States. In Spanish, that exists. In English, it doesn't, which kind of speaks to the power of language in terms of normalizing the dominant ideologies,
yeah.
for sure. So, I mean, to me, that's all connected, right? Rodrigo tearing that shirt, and then myself as the oldest son of two Mexican immigrants that came here in '79 and themselves were wrestling with this rupture and having to reinvent themselves in a place like Chicago, in a place like Pilsen in the early 80s, and, having to deal with the mass deportation campaigns that were happening then. My dad got deported in '81, and just crazy stuff
Yeah.
that happens. And then '86 happens. The immigration reform that
Amnesty.
happened, the amnesty that offered a pathway to millions and millions of families like ours. But like it was all new,
Yeah.
right? And then there's not enough cultural references and education to help people process what you're really navigating here. And it's not until it's too late, right, that you're just like, oh, that you have the knowledge and the wisdom to really wrap your head around just the magnitude of the cultural challenge that we face as Mexican Americans, as people that are part of this society, part of this country, and then also, I guess, part of the world, right? Because right now that is being heavily contested, 100%. There is a all-out attack on our Mexican communities here.
Yeah.
Through these mass deportation campaigns that are heavily destabilizing businesses, families, the whole economy is being.
It's just like another trauma that's hitting.
It is a
the
trauma,
community.
but it is an existential threat to our communities. If you look at what's happening on 18th Street, 26th, 63rd, 47th, the major avenues that are heavily immigrant dominated are experiencing big hits economically, to the point where like viability, these businesses, those jobs, like if things don't change with everything else going on economically, right? Like the fundamental immigrant character of our communities can change and be lost, right? To people that are very willing to gobble up all of that,
right,
to make it something else. And those are the macro kind of forces that unfortunately, as a parent, as a cultural worker, as someone that organizes karaoke parties and these different events, right, frame our collective experience, right? Because if you do ask a random person, right, like, hey, how do you feel about what's happening? It's, oh, I have an uncle that was pulled over, or a friend, who had a parent that was deported, or, this is touching everyone in very profound ways. And it's the segregation in our society insulates a lot of people from it, but also makes it extremely violent and traumatic to it's like, hey, as long as it happens to them and not to me, I'm good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then that's the ideology that unfortunately is very corrosive to any sense of community, any sense of national or international identity, that I think in the city we're trying to work towards, but these things completely undo, right, and reaffirm more of the same.
Yeah.
And then that the final point is that it's when you start thinking about this and you're like, oh, is this exclusive to when we're at? Like, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that our parents had to live with, and Operation Wetback in the 50s, or, the massive repatriation campaigns of the 30s, or the Chinese Exclusion Act, or
And I feel like, yeah,
Reconstruction.
and that's
it's
the
just
thing.
like, oh,
Right.
this is the design.
We just keep seeing it over and over again. And for, I think, people of like us who have noticed it or are aware of it and understand the history of what our people have gone through, you're like, again? Right? It's like, it happened, and it's like, oh, it's not going to be that bad, right? And you're trying to like navigate in your mind what you think ICE coming into a city is going to look like, right? Like that's how. And it was like, okay, so do we like stay in? Is it COVID all over again? Like you can't go out anywhere, and if you go out, you have to carry your passport around. And it's like, wait, what the hell? Like what just happened, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's happening again, and now we are.
What you're saying is key point, right? Because I think we're old enough now to have like interesting perspective, at least politically and culturally, with everything from I was around. I think I started becoming politically conscious right when Clinton was doing his thing, and then Bush with the Iraq Wars, 9/11. I graduated right into that, and what happened. The creation of the Department of Homeland Security happened after 9/11, right? And this hardcore, what do you call it? The creation of an apparatus that now we're seeing like amplified, that was, focused on terrorism and this and that. Now the same ideology and the terms are being used domestically against our people that could have been our parents,
Yeah.
in another generation. But I think then comes Obama, right, and the illusion of hope, right. And I love this word in Spanish called apantallar, right, apantallar, de pantalla, from screen, image, the illusion, right, versus the reality. And people have this illusion, right, of where they think they live, that constantly is either reaffirmed or challenged by what we are seeing more and more of because of social media and the fact that everyone has a microphone and a camera in their pocket. And now we're seeing like, wait a minute, I thought we were here, but in reality this is where we're at, because of the official policies and the decisions that are being made with like hard cash, with weapons, with tasking these government agencies and people to do these official jobs, that in another generation could have been like, hey, we're gonna, what do you call it, move all these indigenous people to
You're talking about the Trail of Tears?
yeah,
Oklahoma?
I forgot the official term for those reservations. For reservations, right? We're just gonna, hey, this is your land. This is where you guys belong. And that happened at a national scale. Well, that's happening too, right? It happened obviously with the redlining in places like Chicago. It's like, hey, here are the black communities,
Right.
And then, hey, something, areas like Pilsen, we're gonna let that fall apart. Immigrants can live there and do that. Let's disinvest, and not like. So at a macro and a local level, you're seeing the design constantly reveal itself, like on where it is that we're actually standing and what the cultural architecture that we're building are present on. That's the foundation, right? And one of my favorite philosophers, Gore Vidal, said that we live in the United States of amnesia. There's no sense of past, no sense of history. And if it is, right, it's a very simplistic, shallow, cartoon image of a past that is much more complicated, much more full of trauma, of sacrifice. If you ask a black family to, share the stories of grandmothers, of great
Mm-hmm.
grandmothers. That's how close we are to the Reconstruction and events that, fundamentally changed this country, right? Or if you ask, in LA, right, hey, did your grandparents and people that grew up in the 30s or in the 50s, what they had to deal with, like,
Mm-hmm.
or my dad, right, that was deported in the early 80s, right? And my mom, two kids, had to figure that out for while he came back.
Yeah.
And that's happening on a massive scale. But now it's like, it's happening and it's being, they're talking about creating 92,000 new beds and
Yeah.
warehouses. And like, this is infrastructure.
Right.
This is like a highway, right? You don't build that stuff without the intent to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's happening now today, that taken in concert with what's happening with foreign policy, it renders a very um, troubling picture
Mm-hmm.
of what it means to live here. And
Yeah.
I think I was thinking about this yesterday because we're blessed, right, to have pretty good jobs, to be busy, to we call ourselves lower middle class, depending on what you're at, to not have to want or live check to check, week
Mm-hmm.
by week. But half of the country can't do that,
Yeah.
right? And that comfort, the illusion of being able to kind of bubble up in your house, or at least on my block, from that reality, from the instability and the broader imposition of might makes right, form of philosophy that renders a lot of people in very vulnerable positions.
Mm-hmm.
And in Chicago, we saw that, right, when the social unrest that happened after George Floyd, right, and straight up fucking went medieval,
Yeah.
with the Lightfoot administration's decision to raise the bridges and, hey, y'all figure it out yourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're not getting into
Mm-hmm.
downtown, and you're like, oh, okay, this is some medieval
Oh yeah.
stuff, right? Like, we're that close to having things fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't act that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The illusion is like, oh, there's gonna be order, it's gonna be all right, but we are a national emergency away from
Mm-hmm.
losing, our voting rights, or from having martial law or something really radical. What do you call it? Come down and not just be a response, right, to people protesting and reacting to their economic realities, but something that could be more fuel
Mm-hmm.
for it to fundamentally remake, our communities in places like Chicago and other cities,
Yeah.
and this and that. So, as someone that deals with art and education, and is in charge of creating cultural experiences that bring people together, I think about that a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? To me, it's not escapism, right? I don't entertain you to get away from it, right? If you do choose to sing a song that in your mind takes you somewhere else, you can do that. You have the complete freedom. But as someone that is tasked with bringing strangers together here in Chicago, in this country, in this moment, right, from the Taste of Chicago to the small bars, clubs where I do what I do, or with elders, I feel like there has to be social philosophy that guides that work, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's with kids or elders or your own family, strangers. And I was blessed, right, to have educational experiences that forced me to articulate it, refine it, understand other frames of thought, to kind of come up with one that has kind of stood up well
Mm-hmm.
through the last crazy decade of experience. And to me, it's helped me place my creativity, my respect for other people's experiences, right? And be like, hey, there is no one like you, Kiki.
Mm-hmm.
No one like you. If you stop being for any reason, you are not replaceable. No one will ever be the collection of experiences and potential that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for your chiquilla, for my children, and the strangers that are. There's no one like them, right? And because of that, right, and because we live in a world where no one can predict the future, right? Oh, we just started a war today, right, with Iran.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't know where the solution is going to come from to help navigate and deal with the collective issues that we face as a society. So, because of an unknown future, creativity is key
Mm-hmm.
for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Creativity is like an acknowledgement that because the future is unknown, we do not know where the solution is going to come from. And not just any solution, right? But a solution that doesn't sell out our values,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say, hey, you know something, we're going to have to lock up these 20 million people in order to, what do you call it, achieve this kind of stability,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're going to have to dehumanize these folks, criminalize them, pay people a lot of
To be
money,
great,
yeah, to
supposedly.
fulfill our ideals,
Right.
you know, or we're going to have to go kill these thousands of people or look the other way and not, what do you call it, develop a creative but life affirming policy that meets those moments,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we've been blessed with relative peace, right? Like what happens, like I think about these world wars,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those
Mm-hmm.
communities probably had no clue what they were getting into, right? And how important those periods of peace before, oh, this is what 40 million people dying is like in 5 or 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is when the crap hits the fan. Now I'm not even thinking about this podcast or thinking about my studio. I'm just thinking about survival,
Yeah.
food,
Mm-hmm.
shelter. It's cold outside and we take our gas and all of this stuff for granted. So obviously education, and that should be different from schooling, but education obviously forces us to deal with history, to deal with the present so that we can look forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to me, that's what wisdom means, right? Being able to kind of look ahead
Yeah.
and be like, you know, something, I think this is where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's good or bad, you know, like, and that's where art can be a very powerful tool to help people see what they cannot see because they're too distracted by the necessities and by the apantallar and whatever is deemed of value in the present, where we can't kind of disconnect ourselves to just look ahead,
Mm-hmm.
to be like, you know, something, what is Chicago going to look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What is the U.S. going to look like? What are, I know where I'm at as a Chicano, as a Mexican American, as a Mexicano, as a living bridge. But where are my grandkids going to be?
Mm-hmm.
What is that identity going to be like for them? And how can I help make sure that they understand the world that
Mm-hmm.
they're in, because it is so ugly,
Yeah.
you know? And as a parent, it's the last 10 years have been really challenging, right? Because of how ugly things are and the
Yeah.
things that people see, and you're like, yeah, or the things people hear. You know, I'll never forget, right? Growing up in Pilsen, you know, you hear shootings pretty consistently, right? At least, you know, around me, once a month, you'll hear shots,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and my little girl's like, oh, what is that, Dad? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you hear gunshots, what do you hear? What are you really hearing? And you're hearing violence.
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing someone trying to take someone else's life. Why? That's the crazy question, right?
Right.
That we have to wrestle with as a society. But violence isn't only explicit. It could also be what you choose not to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the indifference given to some sectors of our society, or, you know, like just not being there and offering resources and opportunities. And in a city like Chicago, because of how segregated classes where you can be in neighborhoods that'll never hear a shot,
Mm-hmm.
to other neighborhoods where you're going to hear that pretty much every other night.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like that should tell you something
Mm-hmm.
about what's happening and the kind of community, in quotation marks, that that we're that we're navigating and raising our families. And I think our parents, when they came, had an illusion of this country that obviously in some places does line up,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you live, but in others it does not.
Right.
You know, so I think that the reality and how it is that you frame it, or what's sold to you, and the whole cultural industry of producing images and dreams and fantasies and all of that is something really important to process too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening into the bonus episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram, What It's Like to Be Here Pod, and catch you on the flip side.